This is probably, and when I say probably, I mean it is the most complicated DIY made easy recipe I've ever made.
What's up, YouTube?
What's up, YouTube? What's up, YouTube?
Yeah, what's up, YouTube? I'm Rugby Juice Recipes. Welcome to DIY Made Easy Season 3. So, real quick, before we get into this recipe, I just want to say that DIY Made Easy is a video series that's geared towards mixers who are just starting making their own e-liquid. So, there is a list down in the description of this video of 26 flavors. So, for this season, every single recipe will use nothing but those 26 flavors. So you can get nothing but those 26 flavors. Vegetable glycerin, propylene glycol, and other additives that you might want to put in your e-liquid, like my friend Nick, who I use at 1%, because it helps me stay off of cigarettes. I quit smoking with flavored vapor products, and I got into mixing my own e-liquid, and it was really, really hard at first because I was watching all these YouTube shows and reading all these articles on the internet about all these really great recipes and sweet flavors. And every single time I found something that was really cool that I wanted to make, I was missing, I don't know, half of the ingredients or something. And then I would have to spend more money and order the ingredients and take the time to acquire them before I could mix the recipe. And I gotta say, it's worth it. You know, I'm a hobbyist. I really like playing with flavors, and I really enjoy checking out people's recipes and mixing, but not everybody's about that. Some people just, they want to vape because they don't want to smoke. And the government has made it very, very, very difficult for a lot of people to go down the street to get the things that they need to stay off of cigarettes. So they've turned to DIY e-liquid making. They don't want to buy 400, 500 flavors and try out experiments. They just want to vape something delicious. So this series can save you money and teach you some, nifty tips and tricks along the way. And maybe you'll get into it. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll just vape the same recipe for, the rest of your life, which will be extended because flavored vapor products are 95% safer for you than traditional combustible tobacco cigarettes. So, yesterday's video, after I revealed all of the flavors that we're using for this season, I made a straw poll, and you guys voted. And if what you picked didn't win, I have good news for you. All of the recipes that were on that straw poll yesterday are going to be mixed in season 3. So, if you picked tiramisu, congratulations, because that's what won by 1 vote. So, if that's not what you wanted and you didn't vote, maybe you should have voted and what you wanted may have won. But yeah, tiramisu. So like I said, this is the most complicated recipe that I've ever created in DIY Made Easy. So up until this point, the most ingredients that have existed in a DIY Made Easy recipe is 6. And this recipe has 7 ingredients. But every single one of them has a purpose. So if you don't know, tiramisu is ladyfingers, which are little kind of biscuity cakes. They're very fluffy, that are soaked in espresso, so coffee, and then it's mixed with mascarpone cheese, like a parfait, and then bitter cocoa powder is put on the top of it. It's creamy, sweet, it's bitter, and it's delicious. So yeah, let's start off with the cake note. We are going to use 3% of Flavor West Yellow Cake. Flavor West Yellow Cake is just the gold standard for cakes. It's very fluffy, it's very crispy, and the best part about it is that you can throw tons of ingredients at it and you don't lose that. With a lot of cake concentrates, they're very delicate and they're very finicky about what you can put on them. And Flavor West Yellow Cake doesn't really have that problem. But we are going to add one more note to the cake layer just to kind of give it some more fluff and make it really, really dense. We're going to put 1% of Capella Glazed Donut in there. And like I said, that's just going to make it a more convincing cake. It's going to give it a lot of texture, not going to make it taste like a donut. Just down at 1%, you don't get a whole lot of that greasy fried dough flavor. You really kind of just get that fluff. So for the cream note, we're going to do a couple of things. So in the previous videos at the beginning of the season where I unveiled the flavors, I said that we are going to play with flavor bending a lot. And flavor bending is the reason why there are so many ingredients in this recipe. So the main part of the mascarpone cheese note is coming from 2% of Capella New York cheesecake. Capella New York cheesecake it's just that. It's a cheesecake. It's a New York style cheesecake, very, very thin crust. It's very thick, it's very creamy, it's very dappy, and it's delicious. I would say that the downfall with Capella New York cheesecake is that if you push it up really, really high, it has a tendency to get super duper funky. Some people really, really like that, but a lot of people don't. I myself included am not a person that can use Capella New York cheesecake really up above 2%. I just get too much of an off note from it and I don't really like it. But what we can do to make Capella New York cheesecake that much creamier without having to add more Capella New York cheesecake is just adding 1/4%, 0.25% of Flavora Sweet Coconut. Flavora Sweet Coconut is very, very, very creamy. And at 1/4%, you don't get a whole lot of that coconut note. In fact, you don't really get any of that coconut at all. It just makes the New York cheesecake that much creamier. The coffee note we are going to get from 0.5%, so 0.5% of Wonder Flavors Brazilian coffee. Wonder Flavors Brazilian coffee it's beautiful. It's a nutty, dry coffee that doesn't really have any of those burnt sort of like popcorn off notes, and a little bit of that stuff goes a long way. We're using it at just 0.5% here, and you definitely get a very, very strong coffee note from this. It's very, very, very good. And another little trick that we're going to do to kind of round out that coffee note and really kind of blend everything together. We're gonna blend together the cream note from the New York cheesecake. We're gonna blend together the coffee note, kind of round it out, make it a little bit creamier. We're gonna add 1/4%, so 0.25% of FA Hazelnut. FA Hazelnut, it's nutty. It complements the coffee really, really well. At 0.25%, you don't get a whole lot of hazelnut note. It just helps out that coffee note. It really, really, really sells that coffee note without making it taste burnt. The last thing that's in here is the cocoa powder note for the top of the tiramisu, and that is 1.5% of Flavora Mocha. Flavora Mocha is pretty much just like a dry cocoa powder, and it's perfect to use for tiramisu. As far as sweetener goes, I tried a couple of different ones in here, and I really, really liked 0.5% of Flavora sweetness. I kind of felt like Flavor West sweetener, which is a little bit malty, I didn't really like what it did to the coffee. But Flavora sweetness, sweetening up that cream note, really kind of bringing that to the front. Yeah, it's very cakey. That cake note is very dense. You get that coffee, that espresso note, that cocoa powder. Yes, this is a very well-rounded profile. There's a good amount of separation in between each note. You can pick out the cake note, the cream note, the cocoa note. The wonderful thing about using Wonder flavors is that most of these flavors don't take a whole lot of time to steep. They are super concentrates, and the same goes with Flavora. Generally speaking, 3-4 days, you're going to get a full flavored profile. This recipe is called Uplift because tiramisu is a very uplifting profile, right? It's very sweet, it's delicious, it's got coffee in it. Yeah, uplift. I really enjoy this recipe, and if you get a chance to try it out, I would love to hear what you think about it. If you like what I'm doing here, there's a link to my Patreon campaign down in the description of this video. You can go there, sign up for my Patreon campaign. Right now, my patrons are getting unlimited recipe requests. So each week, I take a recipe request and I build a recipe for that individual off of your flavor stash. So the flavors that you own, I use those to make the recipe that you want. Now, that's not to say that if you ask me for some watermelon profile and you don't have any watermelon concentrates, that's going to be pretty hard, but I will also make recommendations. So if you have something that I can use, I will use it. But if there's something that I think would be better, I will recommend that. And, you know, if you can pick it up, do it. If not, hopefully you'd just be able to enjoy my recipe. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn notifications on so that I get to annoy you every time I upload a video. Like, comment, and I will definitely see you guys in the next one.